You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauryn Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Carl Jung. How's it going, Travis?
Going well. We moved yesterday, so
that's a lot.
Yeah, the unpacking is going on. U-Haul is a terrible company. Yeah, they're the worst customer service I've ever experienced in my life, and that is not an exaggeration. What else is going on? No, that's about it. We're moving. So
yeah, I feel like when you're moving, life is all about moving for a while. It's the packing and then the moving and then the unpacking and the organizing. It's a lot.
So much fun. How's your life?
So fun. I haven't had a whole lot interesting happen within this last week either. It was another progress report season. End of school is this week for my schools. So finishing up all those progress reports this week and calling it done for the 2021 school year, which is crazy. But yeah, that takes up.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it takes up all of my time basically is to like get those progress reports done.
Nice. Yeah, that just sounds weird when you say it. Done for the 2021 season.
Yeah, I meant like 20/21 school year.
I understood.
Yeah.
I understood. It took me a minute to think about it. As I looked down at my calendar and I'm like, nope, it's May.
Yeah, it's May. The 20/21. That's how I write in my anyway.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was basically my week. It was very, very busy. I didn't do a whole lot otherwise. Didn't sleep very well, but I'm hoping that now that a lot of that stress is out of the way, I can get back to sleeping better.
Those affirmations.
Gotta keep at them. So what are we going to talk about today, Travis?
Well, this may sound like an interesting way to begin this, but Julia and I were recently listening to Harry Potter Book 5 again. And when she first introduced me to Harry Potter, which was like, I don't know, 5 years ago, we listened to Book 5 and, spoiler alert, Sirius gets killed. And in this part, Julia gets sad. She's crying. My wife's not a big crier, so she's really upset about this fake character dying. And I remember being angry with Sirius.
Angry?
Yeah, because he was being an arrogant jerk in the scene where he's fighting with his cousin. I forget her name.
Bellatrix Lestrange.
Bellatrix, yeah, her. He's fighting with her, but he's like joking around in the middle of this fight for his life and being an arrogant jerk because he was described as somebody that's kind of better than most people. So we talked about it and I was like, well, that's interesting how her perception of this and mine are completely different when the words we are listening to are.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it made me think, how much does our perception create reality? And how much does our perception of what we are in control of in our life determine our success levels?
That was a really fun lead into this topic. I like it. So that being said, we're going to talk about what psychologists call locus of control. So what the heck is locus of control? Locus of control basically refers to the extent to which people feel that they have control over a situation or an event that influences their lives. So there's two types of locus or two loci of control.
Definitely loci.
Loci of control. Thank you. That sounds right. That being internal locus of control and external locus of control. So internal locus of control, you're the person in control, right? Like you in your body, yourself is in control, whereas external is everything else around you is in control. Like, so the situation is in control, or your teacher or your parent or your dog or your husband, like it's their control and you can't do anything about it, right? So a lot has been associated with these two types of loci,
Focus.
locus of control, which, so having an internal locus of control is you're more likely to take responsibility for your actions. You're less likely to be influenced by the opinions of others. You usually do better at tasks when you're allowed to work at your own pace. You feel more confident. You tend to be physically healthier, achieve greater success. People who have an external locus of control often will blame outside forces for their own circumstances, will credit luck or chance to their successes rather than themselves. They don't believe that they can change the situation through their own effort, and on and on and on. And a lot, I mean, people aren't just black and white, right? So you're not just like totally internal locus of control versus totally external. It's often like a blend, or like on a scale or whatever you want to call it. But that's in a very long-winded way what locus of control is.
I have a very strong internal locus of control, Lauren.
I as well.
So there's a study from Eastern Kentucky University where they looked at 577 students, and the results of that study showed that students with an external locus of control had increased depression and stress, as well as lower self-esteem, which this makes total sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not exactly where you want to be in life, which is anybody ever exactly where they want to be in life, and you don't think you have any control over where you are in life, the chances of you being overly happy are not that great.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that goes totally hand in hand. That's like if you feel like you're helpless,
You're helpless.
you're helpless, right? That goes back to our like positive affirmations and what, no, I guess that's a negative affirmation, but like what you believe you are, you are. And so if you feel like you can't change things, gosh, what are you going to do? Like, that's a terrible place to be.
You're just along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's fine when you're in a good place, but not when you're unhappy with the situation and you expect the world to change to get out of it, I guess.
It sounds really boring, even if things are going well.
Yeah, it does. I know when you said like who is totally happy with, or I don't know what you said. It was something like who is exactly where they want to be. And my thought initially was like, well, I hope nobody, like, you know, like I hope you're always pushing to get better.
Yeah, that sounds really boring.
Yeah.
Utopia sounds like hell.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. Maybe other people would disagree, but I like trials and tribulations and growing and changing and moving and
striving for better.
Mm-hmm. And learning, like that's learning, right? Like I like learning anyway. So there was another study that was looking at these two different locus of control and how they're related to cell phone use, and then how that relates to your sleep quality, your academic performance, and your overall like subjective well-being. And they found that individuals with a more external locus of control have less control over their cell phone use, AKA they use it more often and maybe during times that they shouldn't. So that obviously can lead to poor sleep quality. So like think if you're up scrolling on TikTok at like 2 a.m. and just can't turn off the phone. It leads to reduced academic performance. So like being on your phone during class time instead of paying attention, and reduced subjective well-being overall compared to individuals with a more internal locus of control.
Well, that makes sense. If you think that everything outside of you controls you, then that
your phone controls you.
Exactly. Your phone controls you. So if it dings, you got to wake up and answer it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that has a lot to do with like cell phone addiction or like social media addiction, and it's all kind of intertwined, you know, like everything controls you.
Yeah. So I found another one where this is my favorite one for this podcast, because I think it'll be the most directly related to what a lot of people are looking for when they listen to a health and happiness podcast. Anyway, so this is an older study, but they took 131 obese women and they studied them during a weight loss program. So in the first 8 weeks, interestingly enough, whether you had an internal or an external locus of control didn't matter for the amount of weight you lost. But after 8 weeks, the women with a greater internal locus of control lost more weight than the women with a greater external locus of control. And the group with the internal locus of control also demonstrated greater self-acceptance.
Oh, that's cool. I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good study.
Yeah.
So Lauren, how can people use this information in their everyday lives?
Great question. I think the obvious answer is to focus on what you can control, because the people, as we've seen in these studies, who have a more internal locus of control are experiencing better overall well-being and even like achieving greater health through like their weight loss journeys and their workouts and stuff like that. So control the controllables. This is a quote that my friend Jessie told me like 10 years ago when I don't know if it was 10 years ago. We've been friends for forever, but she told me this a long time ago. And I have like, I don't know, somebody else probably said it, but it really resonated with me when she told me. And it's something I've written on my board over and over and over again, because I feel like that's the key, like control the controllables, right? And so if you're upset, ask yourself, is this within my power to change? Right? And if yes, make a plan and work towards changing. And if no, let it go, let it go. I work with children. Sorry, it had to happen. But basically, go find something that you are in control of and focus on that. And I think I might ramble for a second here, but I think that's a really important message. Overall, for me, Travis has a very internal locus of control, and I do as well. But this can also be really difficult for me to realize, like acknowledge and realize when things aren't in my control, because inevitably there are things that aren't in my control. And I like to believe that I have control over them, and then fixating on something that I actually can't control and trying to change it is a nightmare, like an absolute horrible nightmare, because you're just like in your hamster wheel grinding and getting nowhere. And so when Jessie told me control the controllables, that was basically geared toward me realizing and acknowledging sometimes things aren't in my control. And then I just have to let it go and focus on like, well, my reaction, what's my reaction? What are my emotions? And I can control those and move away from it.
Yeah, sometimes I might have too much of an internal locus of control because then I get angry. And if anybody is listening to this that has ever owned a house, excuse me, bought a house, or done pretty much anything in real estate, people aren't very respectful of your time, and they're not very good. Their customer service is piss poor. So things like U-Haul this week, where I booked to pick up a truck at Friday night, and then they canceled that and said, how about Saturday morning at a different location? And then they canceled that on Friday night and said, how about Saturday late morning at a different location when I'm planning on moving and have people coming over to help me. A couple people that I paid, and U-Haul doesn't give a crap when you call them. So yeah, that's frustrating. I don't really know how I can make that not so frustrating, unfrustrating.
Frustrating.
But yeah, sometimes having that internal locus of control, it's just like when that stuff happens to me, I'm just like, God dang it, I should just make a moving company and I can run this town in the moving sector because all I have to do is not be a total piece of crap.
Yeah, that's so frustrating.
Sometimes having an internal locus of control can hurt you, and that's where you got to go back to that question that you just asked. is this within my power to change? Well, no, U-Haul's poor customer service is not within my power to change.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think that's a really important message if you do have like a really high internal locus of control. Overall, it's really a good thing. It definitely is like very much like, I don't know, a good thing. It just can have some very frustrating moments.
Yeah. It can leave you angry. Luckily, the guys that I hired to move were two of my football players, and they were flexible on time. So
that's good.
The only real downside is we literally took their entire day because we ended up telling them not to show up until 11:30 when I could get the truck back, and then
Dang.
we didn't get done until 9. So yeah, we just took their entire day. Anyway.
Well, shout out to your football players.
I know, they're great guys. So a challenge for the week would be to take notice of moments and instances in your life where you may be being affected negatively by things outside of your control, and realize that and say, hey, this isn't in my control. No matter what I do, I'm not going to change this. So getting pissed off at U-Haul is not benefiting me in any way. I got to let this go, do what I can do, control what I can control, and pack everything that I can get packed before I get my U-Haul truck. On the flip side of that, if you're unhappy with something in your life, say your weight or your strength or whatever it happens to be, your job, look at that and say, what can I control in this situation?
Yeah.
And make a plan to change that.
Right. Because I guarantee that there's something that you can control in any given situation, even when like the U-Haul is not within your control, like your own reaction to it is in your control. So like there's something, it might be small, but there's something. So look for that, find it, and go forth and change it. You have the power. It's within you. That's one of my little phrases. The power comes from within. It's right here on my board.
Nice. Nice. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up, Lauren?
I don't think so, but I really enjoyed this topic.
Good, me too. Glad we did this one.
Me too.
Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next week with another episode.
See you next week. Bye.
Oh, that was fun. Bye.
Oh, that was fun. Bye.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.